Alrighty, everyone. This is meteorologist Timmy Albertson here with you guys for today's weather chat here. It'll kind of be a little bit of a brief one, as this is actually a pre-recorded weather chat here. But we're going to take a look over at some activity that is going to be going on right now out across the central part of the U.S. in the form of a couple of showers and thunderstorms, some of which could maybe be strong later on. Of course, today is kind of the start of some football team seasons, I guess I should say, in college football. Kind of the two big ones are going to be Notre Dame playing all the way over in Dublin, Ireland today, and Ohio University is going to be at USC later on this evening. But there's also a couple of other games going on, and one of them around Vanderbilt. Nashville area, and they could be seeing some scattered showers and thunderstorms out around that way as we go into later on this afternoon. As a matter of fact, if we flip over to the radar right now, we can see that there is this nice little strong thunderstorm in the southeastern portion of the state of Missouri. To kind of get your bearings here a little bit, if we zoom out, we can see this is kind of that quad state area there. There's Missouri, kind of the boot heel right here. There's western Kentucky, southern Illinois, and then right around here is northeastern, well, not right around there, is northwestern Tennessee. And so again, what we are going to be watching is a little bit of an upper level disturbance here. And it's actually kind of interesting when we take a look over at the upper level charts here. I'll see if I can't put it up here. I can't remember which tab I had it set to. Let's see here. It's going to be this one. When we take a look at this here, this is an upper level chart here. And basically we see right over northern Missouri here, and I'll kind of circle it with my cursor so that you're able to see it. We have this little bit of a shortwave disturbance kind of pushing its way down through, part of kind of a broader upper level trough that is swinging across the Midwest at this hour. So that is going to kind of help to enhance maybe some of those showers and thunderstorms that are going to probably develop across southeastern Missouri, heading back into parts of western Tennessee. Again, a couple of these storms could maybe be strong, if not even severe. On a side note, looking further off to the south and to the west, you can see the upper level high is still kind of ongoing, but instead of it being positioned over the south and across Kansas City, it's now back further over towards the west. So again, that's where we're going to start seeing a lot of that heat now kind of focused as we go through the day today, albeit it's still going to be very, very hot across the deep south. Excessive heat warnings are in effect, which tells you something, because normally during the summer it's just pretty hot there regardless. So again, that's what we're taking a look at as we go through the afternoon. Some of those scattered showers and thunderstorms trying to develop. As a matter of fact, kind of interestingly enough, we happen to have a camera that is positioned right ahead of that storm in southeastern Missouri. And if we kind of enlarge it here, you can see a little train making its way through on the shot there. But take a look over towards the east here. You can see that shelf cloud beginning to make its way into the camera view here. So this storm probably has maybe a couple of 45, if not even maybe some 50-mile-an-hour pockets of some brief gusty winds. And it might also have the potential for some very, very small hail. So wouldn't be surprised if we do see that as that storm makes its way through. But again, at this time, nothing severe with it, but it is still at least somewhat of a strong thunderstorm, albeit maybe below severe criteria, but certainly a nice little downpour there nonetheless. So again, that is all the way over in Bell City, Missouri. And to kind of get your bearings straight a little bit here, it's actually kind of cool, but that camera we were looking at is right here, and there's that storm. Again, not the strongest looking storm. The National Weather Service here is expecting that it probably has, let's see here, gusty winds about 50 miles an hour and maybe some nickel-sized hail. So again, a little bit more than a typical thunderstorm, but not necessarily up to the severe criteria. Further down to the south and to the west here, we got this nice little thunderstorm that is kind of located not too far. What is that? Grandin, Missouri here. So this looks like it may have a little bit of hail with it too, just based on some of the radar reflectivities that we are seeing. This is a special weather statement that's attached to this, so not a severe thunderstorm warning, but again, they're expecting about maybe 50-mile-an-hour winds and some nickel-sized hail there, so just below the severe criteria. And let's see here if we happen to have a camera or something out in the vicinity of it looking towards it. Yeah, you can start to kind of see sky getting a little bit dark there. Here's the thunderstorm. Again, it's looking off towards the west, I presume, and the storm is actually to the west of the camera angle. But, interestingly, actually, what's really kind of cool, if we took a look at this here, it might be a little bit hard to see on your screen, but that may actually be some Amatis clouds right up around here, which again is kind of some cooler air sinking down a little bit and gives it kind of that bumpy appearance with those clouds. We kind of tend to see those sometimes with kind of stronger thunderstorms. So certainly interesting, nonetheless, to kind of be seeing that here on this particular camera view. Now, again, it's about 97 degrees there right now. Humidity is about 53%. Look at that dew point, 77. So this is certainly an atmosphere that is pretty conducive here for at least the possibility for a few strong thunderstorms. Let's see if we can't maybe get another camera angle here. I'm not sure exactly where this is, but well, it's a little bit north of the camera that we just saw, but still looking west. And it looks like here, if we kind of enlarge this a little bit, again, you can still kind of see maybe some of those, what I'm presuming, without actually physically being there and looking at it, do appear to be, like I said, some little modest clouds. You can kind of see the anvil a little bit here of this thunderstorm. Kind of a cool shot there. Certainly rather interesting nonetheless. So let's go ahead and kind of zoom out there. Now, this says right here that it is 105.6 degrees there. Now, it might be sitting out in the sun. I don't put it past it that it's hot out there. Latest METAR observations from nearby have about 95 degrees. That was about a half hour ago or so. So maybe not 105 degrees, but just because that thermometer could be sitting straight out in the sunlight. But again, probably closer to the mid or maybe upper 90s. And again, it's this location right here near Poplar Bluff. That's one thing you got to keep in mind sometimes, that some people forget when they put thermometers out. Is that if you put it in direct sunlight, it'll not register the correct temperature. So in meteorology, what we actually do when we measure temperature, it's 6 feet above the ground, or about 2 meters in metric, and we typically put it in shade. Now, sometimes what you'll see with some of these, really official, weather stuff is they'll be inside of a little white box to kind of help, keep it in the shade. It'll have some openings so the air can flow through, but white does not absorb as much of that heat as, let's say, a darker color would. So, this one, though, is probably, like I said, that we were just taking a look at, probably sitting out in the sun. So 105.6 may not be an accurate number because we see a lot of the observations nearby are generally in the 90s. But regardless, it's still pretty hot and humid out there. Without a doubt. So again, what we're going to be expecting with some of these thunderstorms here is they begin to make their way a little bit more to the south and to the east. The atmosphere also appears to be pretty hot and very humid there. Look at that, 96 degrees in Blytheville, Arkansas. Dew point is 78. Jonesboro, I've been there before. Right now, their temperature is sitting at 99 degrees. Dew point 71. So certainly an air mass that is going to be supportive of maybe at least a couple of strong thunderstorms, if not even, some of them producing a little bit in the way of some hail. I think that'll kind of be the main thing with these storms is maybe some small hail and some locally gusty winds. It does not appear necessarily that there's going to be enough shearing around for tornadoes. But over the past couple of days, we have seen some of these storms trying to rotate just a little bit. So even though that's not really expected, it might still be something that we could see if one of these storms gets really, really stronger. But right now, it's just kind of today looking like it's mainly just going to be some locally gusty winds and a little bit of hail. Let's take a look back over in Bell City, Missouri here as that storm begins to kind of, wow, look at that. That is a beautiful shelf cloud that you're able to see there on the screen. Now, again, this is the first time we've actually ever done this show pre-recorded, okay? Normally we do this live, and maybe we'll probably do a live one later on in a little bit, but this is actually kind of really cool to see here. This is a shelf cloud. This is the rain-cooled air kind of forcing that warmer air up and condensing it, giving it that shelf-like appearance. Again, it's a very typical thing with thunderstorms. I always like to see them, and I'll tell you what, when you get into the plains and into the Midwest, these shelf clouds can sometimes look pretty dramatic, very photogenic, and certainly very, very interesting there to watch. And I always love looking at shelf clouds, and typically they're a good indication of where that rain-cooled air is coming out of. So again, you can kind of think of them too a little bit as a gust front. That's typically where you kind of start getting that, that nice breeze that comes in right ahead of a thunderstorm. So that's pretty much the indicator of generally where it is overall there. So again, trees pretty still there right now. Again, as mentioned, this storm probably does have some 45 or 50 mile an hour, pockets in it there. So we'll keep an eye here on the wind speeds as that storm does begin to move through. And like I said, it looks like it's going to hit that sensor pretty much straight on here. And if we kind of zoom in a little bit, it does look like there probably is maybe some small hail. We start seeing these kind of purple colors on the radar imagery there on some of the reflectivities. Again, the other storm that we were watching is all the way down here near Grandin, heading towards the Arkansas border. Again, nothing severe with those storms at this time, but again, they are a little bit on the strong side. So overall, very hot, very humid. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the tropics here. We now have Hurricane Franklin. I know if you guys have been following over the past couple of days, you've been hearing me talk a lot about how Franklin has just been very disorganized. It's been a little bit of a mess. It kept getting beat up by some mid-level shear. Well, now conditions have become a little bit more favorable for it. It has intensified now. It's kind of a low-end hurricane, 75-mile-an-hour winds, so barely at the criteria for a hurricane. But if you look below me here, on that screen, you can actually now start to see that signature swirl that we'd expect to see, with, these tropical systems when they do get stronger. So not the kind of that, uncontrolled blob that we have seen the past couple of days. It's likely going to continue to move into an atmosphere that's going to be a little bit more favorable. Now the Hurricane Center is expecting it will become a major hurricane as we go into the start of next work week. What is a major hurricane? Well, you may hear that term thrown around every now and then. A major hurricane is a category 3 or higher. And, it's just in meteorology. You can have a hurricane, and then there's major hurricane, which are not quite as, high in numbers as we go through the season. So just another thing in weather that we have to classify. We have to do that with everything gets a category, everything gets a classification, everything gets a term. And I can tell you as a meteorologist myself, it is very hard sometimes to keep track of all the terms. We got like 5 different charts we use for tornadoes, in terms of how we classify them, intense, violent, significant, weak, strong. There's like 3 different lists, and it does kind of get, a little chaotic every now and then with so many terms and categories flying around. But hurricanes tend to actually be a little less, hurricane and tornado categories tend to be a little unusual in the weather world in that they actually are somewhat, not only useful, but more or less steady. All right, I digress. Anyways, so basically right now this is a category 1 hurricane. A category 3 hurricane or above would be considered a major hurricane. And it's looking like Franklin could end up with winds of around 120 miles an hour by the time we get towards the start of the work week. So that'll be sometime on Monday. Now, right now, you see there on the track right here where I'm pointing, right to your right there. This is the cone of, the cone that the National Hurricane Center puts out. Now, these cones can often be very just misleading, and that's one thing in weather we tried to kind of convey is that the cone is only showing you where the center will be. All right, and where it's expected to be. It could be anywhere in that cone during those time frames. So it's got, margin of error. And that's because hurricanes kind of follow their own little rules and, they do what they want most of the time. And so that cone is actually just for the center. Hurricanes, as you know, their impacts are generally felt way, way away from the center too. So although, the 75-mile-an-hour winds is not the entire hurricane, it's just in a small area. But still you can get the high waves and all that kind of stuff outwards. But regardless, looking at this track and then of course looking down there kind of the size of Franklin, it's generally going to be staying out in the open waters. It could get very, very, very close to Bermuda. And that's going to be something very interesting to keep an eye on. Right now, it looks like the center will stay well off to the west of Bermuda, but it could maybe get some cloud cover and some waves from it and maybe some, somewhat gusty winds, albeit when you're that far out from the center. You're not talking about hurricane force winds generally that far out. There are exceptions though. There have been some hurricanes that just want the whole thing. But regardless of the fact, it'll be staying out in the open waters. Upper level trough kind of makes its way out. The one that we're looking at, kind of now, will kind of help to kind of direct this one away from land a little bit as we go into next week. And overall, kind of interesting there nonetheless. So that's kind of a look there at the tropics. There is also another system that is right now down around the Yucatan. I did not put a graphic up for it yet. It still has not been named. It's still not a tropical depression, but it's looking very likely now that this one will probably, that this disturbance down around the Yucatan and western Cuba will probably develop into our next tropical system. That'll probably make its way into the Gulf Coast. Again, still way too early to go into a lot of detail about that, but wouldn't be surprised within the next day or so we actually have kind of a forecast track for that and a little bit more information. So that's going on in the Atlantic right now. There's a couple disturbances out in the Pacific. Both of those look like they're going to stay away from land too. But those Pacific hurricanes though and typhoons, if you're in the West Pacific, same thing, just different names. We'll talk about that some other time. But that one is, sometimes those Pacific ones can get pretty cool because they really don't have a lot of land to interfere with them, and they tend to have way more of an open space, and the conditions tend to be a little bit kinder out that way because they're not it, things just work a little differently over the ocean sometimes. And anyways, without going too far off the scientific explanation, because again, it's weather. But with that in mind, that's a look down there. What's going on with the tropics? Again, we got Franklin. Next advisory will be coming out at about 5 p.m. Eastern time. So of course we'll probably update then at that time about Franklin, what's new with it, if it's gotten any stronger. Really quickly here before we wrap this video up, let's go ahead and go back over towards the radar. I do kind of want to take a look really quickly one more time at those storms. Again, we're looking at that storm, which is now just in front of Advance. Again, it looks like the special weather statement has been dropped with it, but it still looks like it may have a little bit of hail with it. And again, I'm not saying this is big hail by any means. This is probably just kind of some small, pea-sized, maybe dime-sized hail within that storm there. Again, you can see kind of a little bit of the possibility. Let's see here. Let's flip on the velocities and just kind of get a little bit of an idea here what the wind gusts might be like with the storm at the surface. Again, I'm going to say that's right around Whitewater. That looks like maybe a pocket of about maybe 35-mile-an-hour wind, so certainly not a very big wind maker, especially compared to what we have been seeing. We'll go ahead and kind of take a look here at Bell City yet again. We'll see how that storm is doing again, or not how the storm is doing, but how things are going there. Looks like the breeze has kicked in a little bit. That gust front went over them, so we can see it's a little bit breezy there now, but doesn't look to be anything too unusual. There's the rain right behind it. You can kind of see that, looks like someone took a blending brush, more or less, and that's the rain there, so it's about to reach them. Temperature down to about 92 degrees, winds gusting. Let's see here if this is to be believed. It does look like that the winds are only about 15 miles an hour. So we'll follow this here for a few moments, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this video up. Hey, look at that. We're not the only ones watching the storm. There's apparently 7 other people. There's 8 other people now who are watching this video too. Hey, they should join us here on Weather Chat with Timmy. These people must like to talk about weather. So always very fun to do that. And like I said, folks, normally we do this live, so you'd be able to ask questions and everything, and we do some interactions. But just kind of wanted to do this one pre-recorded, and why not? So again, we got this storm that's kind of making its way in now. We are looking all the way down in Bell City, Missouri, and see here, looking for some raindrops. Doesn't look like it's raining there quite yet, but it will be very soon. We can see the rain on the right there. See where those kind of darker clouds are, and you see this kind of blended area. That's the rain right there. So it's probably going to be a pretty nice downpour. Let's see what this area looks like when it rains heavily. Sometimes some places, out here though it's kind of flat, so it's you don't necessarily always get the rivers that form sometimes on some of the streets like where I am. There are a few little hills here and there, at least, well, especially once you get out of town. I'm all the way up in northern Wisconsin, Minnesota. So, but anyways, without ranting on too much, so yeah, it looks like we're coming into that rain now there. Let's go ahead and take a look back at the radar. Again, the storm should be just about right on top of it. What we're looking at is going to be right here. So again, here's this town. There it is, Arbor, Advance. So again, our camera, or not our camera, but whoever's camera this is right there, and at least as of the last radar scan. So it should be raining here pretty shortly, within a matter of minutes. We can see the temperature is kind of continuing to drop a little bit. Now again, this one might also be sitting out in the direct sunlight, so it might not cool down quite as quickly, because it's a little bit warmer than, let's say, what the actual air temperature is there. So it might take a little while for that rain maybe kind of lower that down. But regardless, we see with that dropping trend that the breeze is setting in. The rain cooled air is going to be on its way here. Dew point is about 68.1. Let's see if that goes up just a little bit. My guess is it probably will here. So we'll watch this for a couple of moments. I always enjoy doing this. Again, nothing stronger, nothing severe with this thunderstorm, at least at the moment. But again, probably will have at least a little bit in the way of some gusty winds, maybe around 30 miles an hour. Nothing unusual for a storm in the Midwest. In this case, though, see, that's another fun thing that, I've had this discussion a few times. Missouri, is it considered Midwest or is it not? Missouri is one of those states where, part of it's kind of like the Midwest, the other part of it's kind of like the South, and the other part of it's kind of like the Plains, and the other part of it's like the Mississippi Valley a little bit. So Missouri is one of those interesting states where I don't really know what category they fit into. I mean, even historically, uh, you know, uh, it's a very interesting state. If you've never been there, I've been there. I've been through it a couple of times, and I've been around that. Good portion, most of Missouri except for the southwestern part. But again, it's just one of those states where I never, is it Midwest or is it not? Hey, maybe someone knows the answer. If there's anyone from Missouri who happens to end up watching this video, even if it's years from now, years in the future from now, let us know, what is Missouri considered? Is it Midwest or is it not? There's always politically, but there's also culturally, and it's just one of those states. Now we're starting to see this storm kind of take on here. You can see a little bit of the radar signature back here, kind of highlighting. It does look like this storm may have maybe a little bit more in the way of some gusty winds associated with it, but then again, it could just be the angle with the radar. When it kind of starts taking on a little bit of that backward C shape or forward C shape, if you're looking at it from the north. Regardless, this backward C, we call this a bow, and sometimes we call it a bow echo. Now, again, this is not a very defined one, but it could be an indication that there might be at least a slight uptick in the winds with this. But again, we're talking maybe up to about 35-mile-an-hour wind gusts. So again, not very strong here. We'll know more hopefully if this observation thing, if their anemometer is working, we should maybe get a nice idea of some of the wind. So you can see the temperature continues to drop, and right as I mentioned that, we end up with another special weather statement from the National Weather Service. So what is a special weather statement? It's basically one of these things that most weather offices do. If something is below severe criteria, like a thunderstorm, but it's still strong, or like it's really close to maybe the boundary of being a severe thunderstorm, they'll put what's called a special weather statement on it. So this wouldn't flash, this would probably go off on your weather radio if I remember correctly. And some TV stations will sometimes show these depending upon who owns them, but special weather statement. It's just the National Weather Service's way of saying, for those who really, follow these things, that hey, this storm is a bit stronger than normal, but it's not severe, but it could still be bringing some impacts. In this case, 50-mile-an-hour winds and nickel-sized hail. Again, that's typically kind of the base of what we'd expect when we do see special weather statements issued. Is for a severe thunderstorm to be severe, it needs 58-mile-an-hour winds and or hail 1 inch or greater in size. So an inch would be about a quarter. So nickel obviously smaller than a quarter, but not by much. And then 50-mile-an-hour winds, just a little bit shy of what would be needed for a severe thunderstorm warning too. So getting close to that value, but still not necessarily reaching, or at least as of right now, not expected to be. And again, a lot of times this is radar estimated. So storms moving down to the south at about 30 miles an hour. I do believe that we do have tracker on it. Let's go ahead and see. They said it was going about 30 miles an hour. So if we go ahead and kind of outline that, that's going to put it here down to the end of this about 35 minutes. So this is not the fastest moving storm on record by any means. Again, just kind of slowly drifting its way down to the southeast. So certainly going to bring some heavy downpours with it. And let's take a look here at that Bell City camera. Again, temperature now dropped down to about 85 degrees. And look at that, man, that rain is just right there. It is certainly taking its time trying to get to Bell City here. I want to see if they might have if this happens to have rainfall with it. Does it? No, it does not look like this one is equipped with a rain gauge, but it is equipped with most other things. So looks like we won't be able to get a rainfall total from it, but we could certainly get a good idea here as that storm does make its way in. And again, nothing severe with this thunderstorm right now. You can see a little flash of lightning there, right where my cursor was just a second ago. There's the rain. Again, kind of looks like someone took a fade brush and kind of blended it a little bit. You lose that texture there. And again, it's probably, it can't be too much longer now. I mean, it's pretty much right on top of it. As we took a look at the radar there, you could see some of those early signatures getting really close there. So probably are seeing at least a couple of raindrops out around that way. Let's go ahead here and keep just another little eye on it here. It does look like that and you see, it's interesting, the sea level pressure and the pressure sensor here. Sea level pressure is what we use. It's really weird, but it's hard to explain it. But a lot of times, when different elevations result in different pressures as well as atmospheric conditions. So a lot of times in meteorology, we use an equation to put everything down to what's called sea level pressure. That way, it kind of unifies the maps, and it's not as crazy. You can actually see low pressure systems, and it's interesting here that this one does not look like it is set correctly because the pressure being measured at the site is 1054 millibars. Sea level pressure is 1072, and I'm pretty certain that would be a record if it was actually 1072. So it looks like that's not calibrated, or there's something wrong with the pressure sensor because even 1052 is really, really, really high. I mean that's Siberian high pressure type of high there. So guess the pressure on this one isn't working, but at least the temperature should be. And let's see, our humidity, it looks like has gone up, I believe. Yeah, 60.8%. Dew point now down to now up to 68.7. Now 68.6. So looks like at least those are still working. Temperature there continues to drop, and I'm telling you, we should be this it should be raining here now any second. Again, we can start to see that rain getting a bit closer. Camera is still kind of shaking a little bit, but again, those winds did not look to be overly strong, at least what we were seeing. That flag, though, is whipping pretty well, so probably maybe 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts or so. It doesn't look like their anemometer is working, or at least is updating it very frequently. Here, it said 14.6, but that's stronger than 14.6. So any moment here, we should start to see the downpour coming in. And let's see what the roads look like in this town when it rains pretty hard. Sometimes some of them like to get a little waterlogged, sometimes some of them don't. So just curious. We'll watch this storm here. So again, should be starting there any moment. Looks like, ironically, this is where the camera is. You can see that storm is just kind of trying its best to not rain for us. We'll go ahead and kind of look a little bit further down to the south. Whoa, we'll turn off the time tracker there. And again, the other storm that we were watching was right here around the Donovan area, Hilltop, going over towards Poplar Grove. This section now is starting to look a little bit stronger than this initial section right here. Again, it's looking like we're starting to see kind of a little bit of a line trying to develop here. So when these storms first fire up, especially since they're still kind of separated from each other, they'll probably have some high radar returns, but then it's looking like this might try to kind of morph into a line a little bit. And that's going to bring it maybe into northwestern Tennessee, maybe in a few hours, because again, it's not moving all that quickly. One of the cameras we were looking at, oh, look at that. That's a pretty cool shot. There's that shelf cloud we were taking a look at. You can see it kind of riding there. Again, so again, that's that storm line starting to kind of build now. Earlier, when we were looking at this location, that looked like kind of the main storm was going to pass down to the south, but now it looks like there's kind of a line trying to develop. So looks like this area is also going to be getting on some activity. It's at 106 degrees. We wrote out earlier that was probably not a proper temperature measurement because it was most likely sitting in the sun. And most places around were not reading quite that high. It's not impossible, but At least as of the last META reports, it was mainly mid 90 temperatures around that area. So 105 might be a little too high, based on how that's set up. But regardless, it's still pretty hot there. And so let's see, it should be raining in Bell City now, according to the radar imagery. Let's take a look, shall we? Yeah, the ground looks still kind of dry there, but it's hard to tell. Anyone got their windshield wipers on? Flags still fluttering. Yeah, this storm is just taking its time on not really wanting to give rain to this one small town where the camera happens to be. Uh, like I said, though, it's kind of hard to tell on this resolution if it is actually raining there. I'm looking down at the road. I don't necessarily see. It doesn't look any different than it did earlier, but regardless, let's kind of keep that there for the moment. Go ahead and scroll back down and take a look here again at that one camera from that other storm line. This is further down to the south. Yeah, it's still there. So, I mean, this is still, still developing. And honestly, the only reason why this video still kind of we're still keeping this video going at this point is just because I want to see it rain where this camera is. That's all. See, now you can see their pressure has gone down quite a bit. So again, it's probably just not set right because I mean, even that would be a ridiculous pressure drop if it was correct. So I mean, the dew point does tend to, or the dew point, the pressure does kind of sometimes tend to drop during the day, and there's some reasons for that. Oh no, did we lose our camera? Did we lose it? Did it get struck by lightning, I wonder? Did a tree fall on a did a tree branch fall on a power line? What are the odds, folks? What are the odds? This is the only one we've been waiting for to see this one rain. And when you look at that, it just decided it didn't want to work anymore. What are the odds? Oh, you couldn't write that even if you tried. Let's go ahead here and all right, let's see how our other dude is. I mean, what do we say? Let's go for it. We'll go for it. I mean, you can. What are the odds? Huh? We'll try coming back to that. Here's the other one again. This is further down to the south and to the west. Kind of still right on that storm line. Still looks like kind of the strongest part is down to the south of this, and I'm assuming we are looking southwards. Nice little lightning flash there. So it does look like we are looking, I believe, down to the south or at least to the southwest. And in doing so, it looks like that's kind of the main portion there. This right here, my guess is what it's looking at. Is this right here. That's probably what this is way down here is this. That is my assumption without knowing. Oh, I'm sorry, it's right here. This is the camera we're looking at. So yeah, my guess is this is probably this. So it looks like that's going to kind of miss it, perhaps. And that, like I said, could have some pea-sized hail in it. This one's a little further up towards the north. Let's see what it's doing there. It should be a kind of a light rain, and it does look like that there. That just kind of this little pocket heavy downpour there, clear skies behind it. So again, you got your updraft, and then the upper level winds are just kind of pushing that a little forward, and boom, there's the rain. So kind of cool, kind of a cool thing to see. I always enjoy seeing it, seeing these little thunderstorms there, and especially in this kind of a shot there. So yeah, you got your yeah, that's pretty cool. So you can see the rain just all right there. Here's your darker clouds. Again, updraft over here, precipitating down. Winds are kind of pushing that forward a little bit. And gives it that nice little, classic thunderstorm shape there. So pretty cool to see. Alrighty, everyone. Well, let's take one more look here, see if that camera's up and running. No. So something probably happened there. Must have gotten whacked by lightning, or maybe there's a power outage there. I'm not sure. But anyways, yeah. So quick little weather update for you guys. Like I said, we'll probably try doing at least one more later on this afternoon or maybe this evening. In the meantime, though, again, like I said, normally we do these live. This one was just pre-recorded. Why not? So I'm meteorologist Timmy Albertson. I look forward to seeing you back at the next weather chat, which again, we might try to do another one later on I mean, another hour or so, and that one will probably be live if we do it. So I hope you all have a good rest of your afternoon and see you back here in just a little bit.